Title 17 U.S. Code, Sections 107 to 108 of the Copyright Law. All media in this video is used for the purpose of review and commentary under terms of fair use. All footage, music and images used belong to their respective companies. Also YouTube, please, for the love of gun X sword the perfect anime, fix your broken system when you are able, because Quint will blame me.
Sword Art Online is one of the most divisive animes of all time. Whether that be for its flashy visuals, wide array of characters, an epic soundtrack, and other things, it's undeniable that SAO had a pretty big influence on the isekai genre as a whole. And seriously, Aniplex, what the fuck is this pricing? Oh no! But, regardless of all that, I thoroughly enjoy SAO, since for every single Twitter/YouTube comment that is totally 100% not skewing details for their own convenience, there is a genuinely awesome story to be told with deeper meaning when you experience SAO in all of its entirety. Going off that introductory, rambling paragraph, it's safe to assume that I won't be just doing a mindless hate video on SAO, because that wouldn't exactly be much of a review, and it's also safe to assume that, well, maybe not safe to assume because I said it myself, that I like SAO. Now, before you go writing some bitter comments down below, I humbly ask you to be civil and give me a chance to explain myself. Just because I say I like and enjoy SAO does not mean I think it's perfect, or even the best isekai of all time. So, I'll do the best I can to make this as fair as possible, in light of it trying to be an actual review and not just me stating my personal thoughts, which are certainly part of it, but I want to give a more analytical look at SAO, going each of the arcs, or seasons if you will, because it's a series that I feel like tackling. Isekais are a genre that I quite enjoy, and I have plenty in my library. But until SAO has an affordable Blu-ray, actually, fuck you, Aniplex. Actually, fuck you for charging nearly the price of a game console for an anime that's almost 10 years old by now. So yeah, I have absolutely no shame in sailing the 7 seas for this. But that's besides the point. Personal history with SAO is not much for me. I didn't grow up on it. In fact, I didn't really even bother batting it an eye. Not because of the controversy or anything, but just because I was into different things at the time. Funnily enough, this wasn't even a series I was even going to watch on my own until someone on Discord suggested it to me, and there was a point where I needed a little bit of a break in my Naruto binge, which is still ongoing for the record, and I'm like, yeah, I could do SAO.
My pain is still far greater than yours!
Needless to say, I went back to Pain's Assault arc much quicker than I originally anticipated, because, oh boy! Aincrad is a rough start to a series, not gonna lie.
In an MMORPG, the money you can earn, the XP, once the game starts up, there's only so much of that stuff to go around. Look, The fields around the town of beginnings are gonna be hunted clean soon.
Honestly, I don't have that much to say about the world. Aincrad itself being a virtual reality isekai, and while it is up for debate whether or not a virtual reality video game can count as an isekai, I'm just gonna go under the assumption because it's so different from the real world that it might as well be considered one. But, honestly, at this current moment, I don't really have that much to say. To be fair, I will expand more in SAO as it goes on in future videos when I talk about their worlds, and because this is the first arc, it can't be too complicated right from the get-go. I will give some praise to a few things. For instance, actually, something I made a comment on in the Inuyasha video was how the real world was not just totally forgotten about. It's still relevant even in the series that's an isekai, a whole other world. And while we won't really get too much on that now, it is a point in its favor. And while this world is certainly nothing mind-blowing, it's probably the most traditional of the SA worlds, since, well, spoiler alert, it's not just going to be one world in this game. There's going to be multiple games the crew travel to, so go figure. But Aincrad, like I said, is the most traditional. Fantasy medieval setting, 100 floors, villages, NPCs, guilds, bosses, that sort of thing. It's really what you'd kind of come to expect, and I can certainly understand fans enjoying this environment. It's a familiar setting that's easy to get into. The soundtrack really well paints the lonely, intense atmosphere since the game developer literally turned this MMO into a trap where if you die in the game, you die in real life. So there's this underlying sense of fear and despair under the fun, adventurous gaming aesthetic. It works really well. Atmospherically, Aincrad really does shine. However, I do have me gripes. I mean, I have them with any series I watch. For one, there's no magic system. A bold move, but they kind of shoot themselves in the foot with this one, since later on they kind of contradict that with abilities, which honestly might as well be magic. I'm not talking about like sword skills, I mean just abilities the series just says characters have. Like in episode 4, Kirito explains he has this auto heal ability that gradually regenerates health, and that's bullshit since it's never brought up again. Asuna's ability is it makes her sword strikes so fast the tip of the blade can't be seen, and like, she's a girl that's had like no gaming or sword experience before this. Like, is this not magic? I'm sorry, I feel like it's basically magic if these abilities give effects that might as well be explained via magic. I mean, it's not necessarily cheating, it just sort of contradicts what they established earlier in the anime. Now, to be fair, animes breaking their own rules is nothing new. It's actually very common, but Aincrad's not a very good example of how to mask that. Like, normally I'm not even that bothered by animes that break their own rules. Hell, even some of my favorite animes of all time break their own rules, but this just doesn't feel really natural. And it feels like they were trying to push the boundary earlier than they should have. It was really overly ambitious. And well, normally, keep in mind, I said, I'm not really bothered by animes breaking their own rules, but what exactly makes it a problem SAO? Well, this is the first arc where they should be establishing rules before they try and break them. It creates the infamous genre identity crisis, a term I've used in many series and reviews up to this point. Another gripe I have is the timing of things, but that's a bit more of a story gripe. But it does affect the world too, like how much time passes between each episode or gaps in characters' skill/attitude. I guess it makes a bit of a character gripe too. Damn. And also, the boss monsters, except for one, really follow the basic pattern of slightly bigger than normal creature with a big weapon, which really sucks because it means they could have made more unique enemies rather than just being larger enemies with a slightly larger weapon. And well, honestly, like I said, I don't really have that much to comment on in the world. The music's good, the video and visuals, they're good too. It's really nothing mind-blowing. I don't think it was trying to be. But it's definitely one of the more mundane worlds we've covered thus far in the retrospective. It's a decent world, not great, but it gets the job done. So, let's talk about the characters.
And no matter what, I promise I'll protect all of you.
Alrighty, characters. One of Sword Art Online's most controversial elements is its characters, although, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't too bothered by these characters, for the most part. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've had my gripes, especially here in the first arc, but if I'm being honest, the more you go into the series, the better they get. Starting off with our main male protagonist, Kirito. Or, well, by his real-life name, Kazuto Kirigaya, but I'll be referring to the characters by their in-game names for the most part, because, well, that's just easier and they're mostly in the game worlds anyways. You know, for all the hate SAO gets, Kirito is actually not one of my problems. In fact, I actually really like him. Yeah, it does kind of take some time for them to flesh him out, and there are some things I don't exactly like about him, but honestly, as far as protagonists go, he's pretty fucking cool. Also, it would be really anticlimactic or rushed to just develop him all then and there. I mean, take Natsu from Fairy Tail. I fucking love Natsu, and his development, while slow, is still engaging because he's such a great character. And I genuinely didn't mind about that slow stuff. They try to do a similar thing with Kirito, gradually building up his development as the series goes. And to give credit, Kirito does get the most development in this arc out of the other characters. Although, I'll have to expand on that more later. I know his loner gimmick can be annoying, the whole I'm Kirito, I do things alone, but he does eventually grow out of it, guys. His iconic dual-wielding style, black coat, amazing dub voice, and abilities make him really flashy. The dude is totally styling. And yes, I did just say styling. He's cool, and I have no shame in saying that. Asuna is the main female protagonist. And you know what? I actually like her too. But I do have me gripes. I mean, if I have gripes with Kirito, I have to have them with Asuna as well. For starters, unlike a lot of other strong female leads, Asuna doesn't have the plot armor that Urza Scarlet has. That's good. In fact, I actually think Asuna is a way better character than Urza, but this isn't a fairy tale talk. Very funny that I used Natsu earlier. Haha, totally in the script. And Asuna also doesn't have the unlikability problem that Asuka Langley fucking Soryu has. Oh my god, thank you! It's also just really refreshing to have a female lead who is just as cool as the male lead. Although, about those gripes, since, like I said, I freaking love Asuna and Kirito, both of them together are really awesome. But the growth of Asuna is weird. Like Kirito, they tried to do a gradual build-up in the series, but they sort of stumbled. I mean, this is only really a problem at the start. I think the more the series goes on, the better Asuna gets. In fact, to get a little more controversial here, I actually prefer Asuna in every other arc. Yes, that includes Fairy Dance, for the record, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But the greater issue here is that I found Asuna's personality really inconsistent. Like, sure, yes, the progressive movies give some degree of expansion, I guess, but like, that's really not saying a lot when you have to watch a whole separate movie, folks. But come on, people, she's still styling. So yeah, our two main characters, I quite like. So, what exactly did I say I have my gripes with in terms of characters? Well, that kind of comes down to the size. I understand this is the first in the franchise, so they can't be too deep or complex. Simplicity is sometimes all you need. But with all the additional cast members they have, they really don't do enough, or they try way too hard to make them seem deeper than they actually are. Klein is a newbie who Kirito meets early on. He's a likable doof. It seems like they're going to make him part of the main party. You know, someone Kirito can train up, seeing as Kirito's a beta tester, give him a few pointers. Well, nope. Him and Kirito separate ways really early on, and that's a pretty big shame when you take into account SAO's problem with balancing males and females. Diabel is a fellow who rallies a bunch of players on the first floor to try and overcome the first floor boss, thus boosting everyone's morale. He seems like a likable guy too, but he kinda dies, so we really didn't even get to know him that much. It also makes his death feel really dumb when the emotional impact is practically null. Silica is a beast tamer who has a tiny dragon named Pina, and these two are some of the most pointless characters I've ever seen. Yes, they're cute, but there's a million other cute characters who are better written. And the list goes on. They introduce so many sides to the point it feels like they're spinning in circles. It's sad because it's not like they didn't have the ideas, they just needed to focus on the characters who were actually good. Instead, they introduce way too many characters, a lot who don't do anything meaningful in the story ever again. And then there's examples like Diabel, who are a character that gets introduced, we don't even get to know them for almost a full episode, and then they just kill them trying to play it off as this big dramatic deal. You can't automatically expect me to care about a character we barely got to know. Yeah, I don't really care about characters who die before we really get to know them. But it's not all bad, kinda. I mean, like I said, they had the ideas for some of these. Take Egil, for instance. He's a likable bloke and a character of color in anime who isn't portrayed in a stereotypical or offensive way. He runs a shop both in-game and in the real world, and honestly, he seems like the kind of guy I'd get along with. You know, get a hamburger, play some Mario Party, laugh about the good old days. But that's kind of a problem because, well, like Klein, they don't give him a lot of screen time. What is it with SAO not wanting to give any attention to so many of its male characters? Sachi is an example of a character death done right. Sure, we don't even get to know her for half an episode, but little we do know was just enough for me. Her death also leads to some pretty fascinating set of events and reactions from Kirito that would shape his character going forward. I'm okay when death is done like this, when it has actual relevance to the plot and actually impacts the characters, not just pointless death for the sake of it. Lisbeth got it pretty good, a full episode focusing on her. It does have story significance with her forging Kirito's iconic second sword. She's a personal contact / friend of Asuna's during her days in the Knights of Blood Oath Guild, and has a witty / likable personality. I don't exactly buy the feeling she has for Kirito being anything more than a friendly crush. I mean, Kirito and Asuna have basically been paired right from the start. But I am happy to report that Lisbeth does do meaningful things in the plot later on. Yui is by far the best side character. Heck, I could even make an argument for her being probably my favorite character of this arc. 2 episodes time of focus, relevance to the story, intriguing plot, absolutely adorable, and she does meaningful things not only in this arc, but also in future arcs as well. It's also just refreshing to have a more wholesome character. We don't have to worry about love triangles or harem antics, so Yui avoids that pitfall altogether. But okay, these are just sides now, and I did compliment a couple of them. If I like the 2 mains and split on the sides, then the cast should be fine here, right? Sadly, it's not that simple. I know, I'm putting off further details for the story segment, but just bear with me for a bit longer. We have to color the villain / antagonist, and if anything, that's the biggest gripe I have here. Look, you can have good mains, mess sides, just give me some interesting opposition for these characters to face. Give them fascinating challenges to overcome. Well, sadly, we're shit out of luck there, since the challenges Kirito and Asuna face are really nothing to write home about. Keep in mind, the characters are typically in different places at different times, so calling them a crew isn't even accurate half of the time. The monsters are alright, I guess. They get the job done, but are as basic as they come. The bosses should be an expansion on the monsters, but 3 out of the 5 major ones we get follow the pattern of big enemy with big weapon, which is really bare bones. Arrogant douchebaggy players are just glorified schoolyard bullies, and that's so compelling, am I right? Grimlock is shady and is just hateable for the sake of it. God, these are really lame. And those are some of the smaller villains. You'd hope the bigger ones would fill in the void, but you shouldn't be surprised when I say this. The main villains also leave a lot to be desired. Deal is Asana's bodyguard, and okay, yes, he's an arrogant douchebaggy player as well, but he at least has a motive and a fight scene. There's an okay twist regarding him, but he's basically defeated by the point that's revealed. And while I won't be talking too much about the novel/manga source material, Deal was more involved there and had a couple good lines like, "If you can talk the talk, let's see you walk the walk." The anime not only cut out that incredibly meme-worthy line, but also just cut out a lot of his character involvement, especially with him being such a late inclusion in episode 8. Laughing Coffin had a ton of potential, being a powerful red player guild who would do anything to beat the game. Whether that be stealing or killing other players for their resources, acting as a sort of rival guild to the Knights of Blood Oath. I really like this idea. Some of the players not doing very righteous things for a bigger goal. Of course, we'd learn much later on that Laughing Coffin was founded on much more malicious grounds, and that was just a big cover-up. But again, that's not even expanded until later on. So while they have potential and it does pay off later, what we get for them in this arc is really not that much different from the glorified schoolyard bullies we saw anyways. And Akihiko Kayaba, the head developer of SAO. Man, what a swing and a miss! Now, let me clarify. I do like Akihiko Kayaba as a character. There's a lot of intrigue when you get down to the details with him. But as a villain, I really was let down here. Not only do they barely even scratch the surface of his character, but by the time they defeat him, and they did have time to go into more details about him, he gives us a really half-assed explanation, and again, more details come about him in later arcs. Like, why? You build this guy up, and you just don't pay it off until after he's already dead? In addition to that, he's just not a very involved villain, being off-screen for a mass majority of the arc. And I know they give an explanation why he was off-screen, but it doesn't feel very well thought out and it comes off as rushed. Again, I like him as a character, especially when they reveal more details about him in later on. But here in Aincrad, he's just a nothing villain, with the most redeemable parts of his character not even being here and they come in later. Are you noticing a pattern here? Later, later, later. I've been using that word a lot since it's a big thing, not only with the characters of this arc, but the story too. And I think that basically segues us into the story with my biggest gripe: the waiting. Aincrad loves dangling things above your head, but you only get the payoff later. And that's assuming you want to even see that to begin with, because so many fans dropped this series because apparently Aincrad is the only good arc when it isn't. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna say it right now. Aincrad is my least favorite arc, and no, the progressive movies do not fix things. Look, Kirito and Asuna are good characters. Aincrad is a very traditional setup that I can understand a lot of people feeling right at home at. But the writing really doesn't reach to greatness until later. And I really wish it weren't so. For a series that I love, it's so hard for me to criticize it in this way because I want to love this series and say it's great. Say that it's not what everyone says it is. But when your first arc leaves this much out, I can't help but be critical, in spite of me loving it. And again, it all routes back to the one thing that I think is the first and foremost focus of anime: story. Because anime is a form of storytelling, the story should come at the front. And, well, As you can expect, I wasn't really fond of Aincrad's story.
I repeat, this is not a defect. This is how Sword Art Online was designed to be.
He's kidding, right?
You cannot log yourselves out of SAO.
Guilty pleasure or rigid mess. The story in Aincrad is all over the place. Look, as much as I love SAO, the first arc leaves you feeling really unfulfilled. It's not one of those, the source material does it better kind of deals. I genuinely believe that no matter which version of Aincrad you ingest, novel, manga, or the anime, it's still the weakest arc of SAO, and should not be at the top of anyone's lists, especially when you take into consideration multiple things. And while this might be a dead practice in the Animemories retrospective, I'm gonna do an episode-by-episode analysis, both to paint the picture I've been intending to paint, and because there's only 14 episodes, I believe I can do things in a timely manner. Not like the 5-hour WATV marathon. Probably more akin to the Cardcaptor Sakura or Trigun videos, where I did episode-by-episode analyses there, but they weren't as long, for obvious reasons. And, funnily enough, Episode 1 isn't too bad if I'm being honest. We get all the necessary details right from the start. Kirito is the main boy, the player's getting stuck in Aincrad, Akihiko Kayaba is set up as the villain, and using Klein, the newbie, as a way to explain some game mechanics / show how Kirito knows the way to do things. It's honestly something I don't have too many complaints about. I do wish they didn't separate Klein from Kirito, since he would have been a nice character to have, both either in as a party, or just because SAO really has no clue how to write its male characters, whose names aren't Kirito or Yujiro, but overall, Episode 1 did what it needed to, so good on ya. Episode 2 is a solid follow-up. The players want to defeat the first floor boss in order to boost the morale of players in hopes of clearing the game and freeing everyone. Introductions to characters such as Diabo, Ego, and Asuna are done alright, I suppose. The fight with the first floor boss is a goodie too. Not too complicated being the literal first boss, but as far as action set pieces go, this is decent. Of course, it's not all positive since I do still have my gripes. I don't particularly like how Diabel's death is handled, nor do I really like the whole beta tester / beater hate shaming thing, since it feels really contrived. I also feel like this really isn't a proper introduction to Asuna either. She obscures her face behind a hood for most of the episode, is very quiet, and only really gets into the swing of things when she works well with Kirito. I get the progressive movies expand on that, but good luck finding a natural way to squeeze that into the watch order, which is not as easy as it sounds, by the way. Criticisms aside, this is one of the better episodes of Aincrad. Episode 3 is an interesting one. Normally I wouldn't be very keen on an episode that tries to do what it does this early on, but because the events here did shape future events and aren't just swept / forgotten under the rug, it makes for one of the better episodes of this arc. Kirito has decided to join a guild called the Moonlit Black Cats. He doesn't reveal he's a beta tester in fear of either being rejected or resented. With him having knowledge of the game in higher levels, he's able to fit in pretty well, seeming to get along with all the crew. One of the guildmates, Sachi, grows a sort of attachment to Kirito. Keep in mind, because of the way Akihiko Kayaba rigged the nerve gear headsets, dying in the game will result in a death IRL. So there's always that hanging fear when your health bar reaches 0, because when it does, that's just it. And it's honestly really heartwarming to see Kirito encourage / comfort Sachi. Things are looking pretty peachy going into a dungeon, but the party runs into a trap and everyone, and I mean everyone, dies. Only Kirito made it out of there alive, but even so, they're gone. The guildmates, Sachi, and even the one guy who stayed behind at the base literally took his own life unable to handle the bad news, leaving Kirito all alone writhing in his own guilt, feeling bad for not telling them he was a beta tester and didn't want to do this dungeon in hopes they may have lived. And that's only halfway through the episode, mind you. The second half takes place roughly around Christmas, where Kirito is still feeling impacted by this, and even hears about an item that can revive players. So he really goes out of his way for this, having to fight the creepy Krampus monster here.
Let's do this.
Wait, what? No fight? Whatever. He gets the item in question, however, it can't save Sachi. The revival bead can only save a player when they're in their 15-second death/despawning animation. You've probably seen that sort of thing in video games like online shooters akin to Call of Duty, Team Fortress 2, Fortnite, or something like that. You know, where your character keels over, you can spin the camera around to see who sniped you, and the score or whatever. But yeah, because Sachi died way back and clearly isn't in her 15-second death animation, the item is useless to him. Klein meets up, but it's cut short with Kirito just angrily handing him the item and going back to his room. The final nail in the coffin being when looking through the belongings he had from the Moonlit Black Cats, he sees a message crystal left from Sachi, thanking him for his contributions and comfort. She even hums him Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and it hits way differently. What was meant to be a sweet and heartwarming gift has become an eerie and almost haunting reminder. I mean, I don't think it's nearly as iconic as people make it out to be because, let's be real here, guys. We only really got to know these characters for half an episode, if that. And while Sachi's death hits hard, you can't really say the same for the other Moonlit Black Hats we didn't really get to know. But I'll give credit where it's due. This definitely got my attention. And I mean, I don't normally care for characters that die before we really get to know them. You can't really pull a tearjerker for a character death, especially if it's someone you're not giving me a good reason to do so for. But in this case, because it isn't something they sweep under the rug, and it is called back to several times, I'll give credit where it's due to episode 3. So, that leads us to episode 4, where... Oh no.
That's fine. Actually, I was just thinking I should ask you about...
Oh no.
Calm down! That thing's not that strong.
No! Did you think we were going to be following up with actually meaningful content? Well, think again. In a complete clash of tones, we go from character development in psychology to mindless waifu pandering and fan service. And for a character who doesn't even deserve it, or even matters in the grand scheme of things. Silica's episode is everything wrong with SAO in a single package. If I really wanted to, I could summarize this episode in 3 sentences. But that wouldn't be very fun. But you know what? Just for the sake of shits and giggles, I'm gonna do it anyways. Silica is a beast tamer whose digital friend Pina dies in a battle with fodder enemies. Period. Kirito decides to help her from the generic red-haired schoolyard bully. Period 2. Through dumb, stupid hair antics, they manage to revive Pina, and then these two do nothing meaningful in the plot ever again. Period 3. Riveting. Absolutely riveting. Ah, ah! Look, I don't mean to throw Silica and Peanut under the bus, since it's not like she's an awful or even hateable character. A Beast Tamer class has some interesting potential. Peanut is a dragon, and I like dragons. Silica is cute, but that's not really anything that revolutionary when I've seen way better cute characters who actually have good writing. And okay, look, there's an okay idea for a character here. Problem is, there's no payoff. No payoff. And remember how I said this episode has all of SAO's worst trends and cliches in a single package? Let's just list a couple of those. 1. Lack of focus. 2. Dull pacing. 3. Predictable direction. 4. Unwarranted fan service. 5. Fake emotions. 6. Uninteresting opposition. And 7. Cheating me out of a fight scene. Look, SAO has some really good animation, and for those who've seen the abridged or even just meme videos on the internet, you would know this is the episode with the Kirito, "Oh yeah, I heal more damage than the wounds you can inflict on me" scene that everyone talks about and everyone points fingers at, because apparently this scene just makes Kirito overpowered when he's not. But good lord, did they really have to not give me an actual fight scene? I can understand why maybe they didn't have a fight scene for the Krampus monster in the last episode, because of the remaining episode time and they didn't want to shift the focus from the tragedy at hand. Here, they have a very clear excuse for a fight, and in one of the lamest solutions, the douchebaggy red-haired schoolyard boy players can't beat Kirito because he has a higher level than them, and his stupid DPS auto-healing ability in a video game that they made no secret has no magic system. What even is this? What even is this? And yes, Peanut is revived, because of course they would, because a in-game NPC doesn't get brain fried by the Nerve Gear headsets. And then we yeet this character to the sidelines for basically any other future arc she appears in. Pointless side character. No. Pointless episode. This was a complete waste of 24 minutes. And for a character that if you removed, we wouldn't miss all that much. With her lack of involvement to the actual story of SEO's greater narrative, let alone the narrative of Aincrad itself, I don't buy the feelings. They're not going to try and pull a D-Bell with a baby dragon within the first 5 minutes of the episode, and even Kirito feels not that cool here, since coming off the last episode, it's like he's almost over it now. And okay, yes, I'm aware they jump floors between episodes to show the passage of time. There's effectively time skips between most episodes, and I can understand why they did this, because if we had 100 episodes for 100 floors, we'd never be done with this first arc. But the amount of time and content jumped is insanely inconsistent, creating a clash of tone that almost feels like they were ignoring the plot they set up in the first place. And yes, a lot of plots do get called back to, but not in this arc, and this is just one of the worst episodes of all SAO. There's nothing meaningful that happens here. Okay, let's breathe. Let's talk about episode 5 now. It can't be as bad as that, now can it? It's a two-parter, meaning elements here will carry over into episode 6 as well. It's a murder mystery setup, and I quite dig those. We'll see some sides return here, which is nice. And we'll have a reunion with Asuna, who is now second in command of the most well-known guild in the game, the Knights of Blood Oath, who... Wait, what?
I'm running this operation, okay? In case you forgot, I'm still second in command of the Knights of the Blood Oath.
Bro! You were an emo hood-wearing wimp when we first saw you back in episode 2. Don't give me any of that. You only got braver because Kirito inspired you. Now you're a bossy, high-ranking member of the strongest guild in the game? Off-screen? Off-screen! Yeah, this is one of my gripes with Asuna, despite my love for her as a character. She's so inconsistent in Aincrad. Just to reemphasize what I said in the characters section, I do like Asuna. However, I'm gonna get some flack for this. Her introduction is not good. 1 second she's a shut-in who won't even reveal her face, the next she's a bossy tsundere, the next she's a caring friend, the next she's a sensitive crier, the next she's a mother figure, and so many of these transitions for her are off-screen. Does that not explain the problem with the time skip jumpy thing between episodes they have going on here? You mean to tell me your vote for the best girl goes to this? I'm not buying it, when Asuna is literally better in every other arc. And oh yeah, I almost forgot about the plot of episode 5 and 6, since they aren't anything to write home about either. Besides the Knights of Blood Oath meeting, which for the record I'll be abbreviating to KOB for short, this episode has so little impact on the immediate plot. The first 6 minutes, including the intro crossing field and the opening scene, yes, I counted, are in this stupid field with a glorified bickering session between an overly serious "I'm second in command" and the Black Swordsman just telling her to relax. So she does, but then she gets mad and tries to draw her weapon on him. You don't do that! What are you trying to do? Throw a main character off of a bridge?
Hey, that was a private conversation!
Oh, wait. And remember how I said the premise of both this episode and the next was a murder mystery? Well, you might as well throw any hope you had off a bridge too, since this is one of the lamest mysteries I've ever seen. 2 episodes could have been enough time to weave a serviceable mystery subplot, but because this is the first arc, and still fairly early in it at that, we don't really have enough established characters to pull it off, on top of them still trying to build the world and rules. It's just too early for this kind of story. Villages/safe zones have a rule where players' HP can't drop to 0, but somehow there's been a murder inside of one. Originally, it was thought to have been a duel, which can override that mechanic, but there wasn't any traces left behind suggesting a duel was initiated. The characters involved are from another guild, and that's why the Knights of Blood Oath were sent to investigate/keep the peace, if you will. None of the guild members I care about. The clues are either convoluted and dumb, or overly simple, making the process of deducing things not satisfying. The former leader of Grimlock is suspected super early on with the murder weapon being examined, and, well, guess what? You just identified the culprit right then and there. But we still have an episode and a half of characters spinning around in circles and bickering. Asuna, the Knights of Blood Oath, and certain sides don't save it. And no, the payoff isn't great either. They miss all the beats to writing a compelling mystery plot. Character involvement, misdirection, clues, deducing, and a satisfying aha when its case is closed. None of that is here. And nothing further proves this than the follow-up into episode 6. And you would hope the second portion would be more eventful, or at least a little bit better. And while it's not as bad, nor does it spend 6 minutes in a stupid field, it's still not great. Not only do we have more deaths of characters we don't spend enough time to care about, it's followed by more lame bickering, a red herring with the ghosts of the victims, and on top of... Huh? Wait, they aren't actually dead? Well, this just goes in the complete other direction. Not only do you try and do a fake-out death for characters we don't care about, but nah, don't worry, they didn't die, so it's no problem, right? No! You still don't care about them even if they do live! This fixes nothing! And yes, I understand there's an in-universe explanation. They were trying to smoke out the real culprit, so they faked their deaths in order to get them out there. Fine, I get it. You want to find out who is behind co-founder Griselda's death as much as the next guy. And the series has made it no secret their murder weapon belonged to the guild's leader Grimlock, and they thought he was dead. But just as it seems like they're onto something, that's when the murder guild, Laughing Coffin, shows up to silence them. And okay, you know what? Credit where it's due, I quite like Laughing Coffin. Compared to the monsters or generic douchebaggy players, there is actual relevance to Laughing Coffin in the story. They are the arch rivals to the Knights of Blood Oath. Unlike the strong and well-kept honor of the Knights, the bandits of Laughing Coffin would do anything to clear the game, even if it meant stealing or killing other players. And you know what? This is actually kind of interesting. Yes, we do learn later on Laughing Coffin was founded on much more malicious terms, and that was just a cover-up they told several of their members, but they do feel appropriately threatening. Their dark robes, faces hidden in the shadows, the sick music tracks, and 3 generals of Laughing Coffin are right here to personally do the deed. Johnny Black, Red-Eyed Zaza, and the founder of Laughing Coffin himself, the Prince of Hell, or Poe for short. This is a really good idea, a way to make the opposition more than just monsters or egotistical players for the sake of it. In addition to being arrogant, they are also known rivals to the Knights of Blood Oath, so there's stakes in it for both Kirito and Asuna. Kirito comes riding in on his horse to stop them before they can do the deed. Weapons drawn, glares of determination. Atmosphere is actually pretty on point here. Cue the epic duel music!
Come on.
Really? Really? No fight scene again? You're just gonna have them walk away until they're actually relevant in a later arc? Guys! Look at these visuals. Look at the opening crossing field. I was under the impression I was getting myself into an action isekai with 2 epic sword fighters climbing the floors, fighting bosses, and ultimately stopping the evil developer of the game. We've had 1 fight scene. And the rest have either been cut short or they just fucking don't! They fucking don't! And it's so dumb because I know SAO is perfectly capable of writing a competent fight scene. Case in point being the fight with the Kobold Lord in episode 2. So what the hell is going on here? Why do you keep cheating me out of a fight scene? Are you guys sure this is the best arc of SAO when it has pointless characters, time-skippy pacing, mediocre source material, a passive villain, and fight scenes that aren't actually fight scenes? Literally, everywhere I go. Number 1 spot, Aincrad. How do you rank each arcs? Top of the list, Aincrad. S tier spot, Aincrad. It's just Aincrad. CBR should be embarrassed since they couldn't even get the right freaking picture. And before you accuse me of being a contrarian or someone who just doesn't understand the arc, may I point out that instead of actually fighting Laughing Coffin, we get this in its wake.
No matter what, I had to kill her while we were stuck in this world. I had to kill her while she was still my wife. And because she was also my wife in the real world.
Oh, please. Not only is your fan-favorite arc that you believe should have been the only premise has lame fight scenes, but it has equally lame opposition. You have a chat room complainer, a fat fodder enemy given a big health bar, freaking Krampus, a bitch, and the main villain who people also put at the top of their lists isn't much better. Now add Mr. I'm gonna sacrifice my wife to the list.
In a way, she was the perfect wife. Ideal. So pretty, so submissive. The whole time we were together, we never had a single fight. But when we were trapped in here, in this world, she changed. She changed. The Yuko I loved was gone. Gone! But then I realized I didn't have to live with the way she was. Murder is part of this game. If I couldn't have the Yuko I loved back, I'd settle for the memory of her. And who could blame me?
And no, this does not make Grimlock a deep or well-written villain in the slightest. His confession comes and goes as quickly as the chance for a fight scene. Kirito and Asuna are brought together, they see the ghost of Griselda, and that wraps up 5 and 6. A waste of time on top of the waste of time that was episode 4. Man, I feel like I'm watching an entirely different show at this rate. Where is the focus? What happened to the main objective? Ugh, I swear they had no clue how to write this. And no, do not try and tell me the source material did it better because A, that's bullshit, and B, if you're going to crutch on outside material, then this arc has no right ranking anywhere close to the top. Okay, I think we need a palate cleanser. Well, luckily, episode 7 serves as a good one. While I wouldn't call it fantastic, it does relate to the main story. Kirito needs to better his gear, so Asuna sends him to a friend of hers, the blacksmith Lisbeth. Kirito wants to forge another sword, but in order to do so, Lisbeth will require some ore from the mountains, which is a large dragon guarding the area. Kirito is confident he can handle it, so the two go out to farm the materials, avoid the dragon, and if they're caught, confront it and come out alive. Okay, simple enough mission setup, I can get behind that. Lisbeth is likable and has a witty personality. I don't exactly buy the romantic feelings she has for Kirito, but as a friendship I can see an entertaining dynamic. The dragon looks pretty cool, and I've said it before in other videos, but I really like dragons. You really can't go wrong with a good old-fashioned dragon fight. And obviously, they're not just gonna stealth around the dragon, so they're gonna get caught in the scuffle. A bit of back and forth slashes, but the battle leaves them tumbling down a hole and they get stuck in a pitfall. They need to find a way out, with the dragon looming above. So they spend a little bit of time here, and this is where Lisbeth opens up and we get to know a bit about her. After that, Kirito and Lisbeth ride the wind gust upwards to face the dragon and... Okay, I said face the dragon, not reinforce the feelings which I don't buy and...
Don't freak out! But I'm falling in love with you!
You're kidding me, right? You're kidding me. This has to be a joke, right?
A one-handed longsword, right?
Oh my god! You off-screened a dragon fight! How do you mess that up? Okay, sure, there was an actual exchange of blows, which is more than I can say for Laughing Coffin, but apparently it was way more engaging to spend time at the bottom of a hole than to animate a dragon fight. Ain't no way that baby-ass Scrape did the last bit of health on his health bar. And also, how did Kirito and Elizabeth survive the landing? Is there no fall damage in Aincrad? Oh, wait. And for a dragon. Guys, you cheated me out of a dragon fight scene? Yes, there was an actual bit of blows, but like, no, how do you mess that up? Where is the fight scene? But okay, you know what? I'll give credit where it's due. This was a decent episode. It does pertain to the main plot. The dragon, well, not a very good fight, is an okay set piece. Lisbeth is an alright character. Kirito's iconic second sword is forged. I'm trying, guys. I'm genuinely trying to enjoy myself here. Now that we've gotten that fairly okay episode out of the way, we can finally talk about episode 8, which returns to the main story. Yeah, haven't you been noticing a real lack of plot progression in the episode descriptions? Part of that is on account of the, well, time jumpy thing they do between episodes where they just do 5 or so floors off screen. The other part is because of the actual plot relevant elements not being that big of a focus in those episodes. Kirito and Asuna want to clear the 74th floor dungeon. This episode also introduces us to Kuradil, another member of the Knights of Blood Oath, or KOB for short. It's shown almost instantly his disdain/dislike for Kirito, being nosy in Asuna's business despite her orders, the way he calls out Kirito for being a beta tester, and just that solemn look on his face. It's not really a secret they're trying to paint him in a shady way. This episode also has some time spent on the Kirito x Asuna material with some cooking, and while I don't like how she points a knife at Kirito, I am starting to find more to appreciate about Asuna. There's also some subtle clues letting on she puts on this bossy/soon to react as a coping method to look the part of second in command, which I can understand. She wants to put on this mask to seem brave when she's really just a casual player. I can understand that, and I wish we got more details pointing towards this earlier, rather than just reaching for your fucking weapon because Kirito told you to relax in a stupid-ass field. But okay, they are progressing it, and I'll give credit where it's due. I do actually like the romance between Kirito and Asuna. Well, the episode progresses after yet another case of a male character getting hit by a female character in anime, but not the other way around because double standards suck. We have Kuradil show up all shady-like, and with Asuna hiding behind Kirito, we know he's gonna protect her. That's when Kuradil loses his temper and decides to challenge Kirito to a duel. Just one-on-one. I had to reference WATV somewhere. We were told a bit about how duels worked in the dumb, stupid murder mystery two-parter, so now we'll actually get to see one in action. It'll also be interesting, with most of the monster threats we've seen being, well, what else? Monsters, so we'll actually get to see how humanoid fights work, with skills and such. It should be a really good chance to... I'm done. Fine, I'll keep freaking going. God damn it, Aincrad! Guys. The first arc is the best one. SAO falls off after Aincrad. They should have just had this be the only arc. Did you even watch the series? How can SAO, a series that, while divisive, even detractors know the visuals are impressive, say this when we don't even get actual fight scenes? I said before that I was under the impression this was an action isekai story that took place in a VR game world, and then I see things like this that have me question whether or not that was even the intent to begin with. And okay, sometimes I can understand the fight scenes being cut short, but this is going way too far because the fights aren't even over 2 minutes long going off of the in-game clock. And look, I love Kirito. The dude is one of the most misunderstood protagonists and one of my favorite characters of SAO. I will defend him with all the logic and reasoning I can, but not this. This is not how you do fight scenes. This is not how you make Kirito look cool. He literally broke his sword in one hit. I don't think, oh hey, Kirito's awesome. I think, well damn, they really didn't want to animate an actual fight, now did they? And then Kuradil leaves in a huff. 20 minutes into the runtime, Kirito and Asuna are finally back in the dungeon and reach the boss room, ending the episode on the reveal of the cliffhanger of what the monster is. Okay, so honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not really sure how I feel about this one. Like, yeah, I can appreciate them returning to the main plot. I can appreciate Kirito and Asuna finally starting out a bit better. And while yes, I'm not very happy with them cheating me out of a fight scene yet again, this episode is just alright, I guess. And yes, as you can imagine with the cliffhanger, it's a two-parter, and that's going to carry over into Episode 9. Episode 9! Most of the runtime here is dedicated to the dungeon crawling. With Kirito and Asuna having located the boss room, there really isn't any point in taking it on now with just the two of them. So they go back and see if they can team up with any to stand a better chance against the monster, the Gleam Eyes. Luckily, however, Klein and some others were in the dungeon as well. And while it's brief, I'm glad that he and Kirito don't hold anything against each other after their separation / Kirito snapping at him back in episode 3. That's most of the first half of the episode. The second half is dedicated to the fight with the Gleam Eyes, and naturally the wrap-up as well. And you know what? It's fun again! The fight here is an actual fight. It doesn't end in 30 seconds. My god. Asuna and Klein are useful, with Klein getting the wounded to safety, while Asuna provides a speedy defense, allowing Kirito to land hits in on the boss. It uses what we know about these characters and their preferred move / playstyle. It even sees the first use of the second sword, Lisbeth Forge, and Kirito would not only be known for his iconic dual-wielding style, but also for his flashy combo move, Starburst Stream. Where was this earlier? This is proof SAO can do good fight scenes. And heck, even the aftermath is satisfying, with Asuna actually showing a bit of weakness, being afraid they may have not made it out. She even wants to be with Kirito and leave the Knights of Blood Oath so she can feel more like herself and not what the guild expects her to be. Of course, it's not going to be that easy for her to just step down, being second in command and all that, so they'll have to appeal to the commander, but it's kind of nice to see the two of them really open up to each other. And well, I mean, on screen anyways. But yeah, this was just a good episode. Where was this earlier? I'm also happy to report episode 10 is good as well. One of my favorites, in fact. I wish it didn't take them so long, but we actually get to interact with more members from the Knights of Blood Oath. Besides Asuna and Kurdio, we really haven't gotten to see or interact or even know about them that much. We're just told they're the strongest, most honorable guild in the game, and they don't really show us any of that on screen. This is where we meet Asuna's boss, Commander Heathcliff, the founder and highest in command of their guild, as well as one of the strongest players in the game. Understandably, he explains that letting go of Asuna wouldn't be within their best interests, since claiming the game is the thing that everyone wants and they need skilled players. Plus, losing her second in command would probably throw a wrench in the leadership method, so he kinda has a point. Especially when Asuna's only real reason for wanting to go is to be with Kirito and feel like herself. Like, maybe she should put the well-being of all the other players in her head? Naturally, Kirito isn't just gonna settle for Heathcliff saying no, but Heathcliff offers an alternative. Why doesn't Kirito just join the KOB? Huh? You're a loner? Well, okay then, how about a duel to decide? If Kirito wins, he can take Asuna and they can do what they please. But if Heathcliff wins, Kirito will join the Knights of Blood Oath, and then he and Asuna can team up together that way. This is actually kind of fascinating, since we know Kirito as this loner, and Heathcliff's offer doesn't even seem that bad in the grand scheme of things. While Kirito has gone by alone for the most part, there's gonna come a point where even he can't handle it all. Most players by this point are in some kind of group, with Kirito only really helping out during a couple operations, but going his own way after all is said and done. This is a great call out to Kirito's mentality and how it honestly might not be very healthy to just push people away all the time. And while Kirito doesn't want to join a guild in fear of past events, he does choose to duel Heathcliff because Asuna does mean that much to him. And you know what? This is another good fight. The best in the arc in my opinion. Like the fight with the Gleam Eyes, it uses what we know about the characters and their movesets. Heathcliff uses a shield and sword. Kirito uses his dual-wielding style that we just saw him showcase in the previous episode. We even get to see some of the characters' individual skills. Heathcliff's shield, for instance, ignores durability, meaning it can't ever break. His Divine Blade also has piercing capabilities, so he can still do good damage against armored foes like himself. The battle uses what we know about these two fighters in clever ways with good strategies shown around. Kirito's more aggressive, in-your-face combo-heavy methods, clashing with Heathcliff's more defensive and counter-oriented actions. Like I said, there's plenty of strategies on display here. Heathcliff doing a little fake-out shield bash, Kirito doing a barrage of attacks, forcing Heathcliff to be on the defensive to give him less time to counter, trying to move around Heathcliff to reach spots where the shield won't cover, and using the force of his swords to push away the shield to give him an opening, to name a couple. I do wish it were a little longer, but this is a good battle, with a surprise twist with Kirito actually losing. They do make it overly obvious something suspicious was going on, but I can appreciate the fact we actually got a fight that challenges Kirito, both in physical combat, but also just in his mentality. And while he's reluctant, he does go through this and honor the end of the deal. I mean, he'll still get to be with Asuna. And that's only the first half of the episode, too. The second half has Kirito go on a bit of a training mission with the other members, if you will. Kurudil is back, and it seems like they want to try and bury the hatchet. Well, okay, not really, but still. I will say, though, I do like the little reaction they give when Godfrey says, "Let's go raid a dungeon!"
Let's go clear a dungeon!
Yay.
I don't know, it's just funny. However, as you likely expect, things don't go so well, and Kurudil kills Godfrey by spiking their drinks and has Kirito on the ground. It's here that Kurudil is revealed to be an agent of Laughing Coffin who employed himself into the Knights of Blood Oath to monitor their status. With Kirito and Asuna having seen Laughing Coffin back in episode 5 and 6, it makes sense they'd want to get rid of them and deal a blow to their rival guild in the process. Luckily, Asuna was concerned and tailed them and saves the day. And while it's not her best fight by a long shot, it is satisfying to see Asuna deliver the business, in a short, but okay, decent action sequence. It's more or less an extended hostage situation since Kurudil really can't fight back, but at least it's not over in one hit like that duel in episode 8. So they at least attempted to make an improvement, while showing Kurudil isn't the best fighter to line up with what's established about him earlier. And he actually dies too, for the record. Kirito impales him through the chest, and you know what happened to those who die in SAO. And you know what? Again, the wrap-up is kind of satisfying, with Asuna really opening up to Kirito, really revealing how she feels, and not just the bossy mask she puts on for the rest of the series. With that, we're up for another two-parter, starting with episode 11. These are the Yui focus episodes, and in my opinion, the best part of Aincrad by a mile. It does justice to the two-part episode format the series kinda was struggling with before. Both episodes are solid and can stand on their own. There is a weaving connection between them, it's more seamless than the stupid murder mystery two-parter, and doesn't have the balancing act fiasco that the Gleam Eyes dungeon two-parter had. Following the betrayal and subsequent defeat of Kurudil, Commander Heathcliff allows Kirito and Asuna to have a vacation from the ordeal. This time is actually spent on the romantic aspect of the two, and I'm gonna touch on something I usually don't like talking about in these kind of stories, but I actually do quite like the bond between Kirito and Asuna. While I have my gripes with them as individual characters, together, they're a pretty good pairing all things considered. And I'm glad that the series definitely considers this to be the canon, or at the very least intended pairing, since deep down, both Kirito and Asuna are just really lonely people. They even have an in-game house now they can go to, and it's really nice to see them just be more open with each other. It's not this stupid, dumb power dynamic with a second-in-command talking with a lonely beta tester. It's more of just two friends, and honestly, I think it's better that way. However, during their time in the little home, the two come across a little girl in the woods who's fainted. And even though they're on vacation from hero duty, they can't just leave a child out in the open, right? I mean, in this world, if your health bar reaches 0, you die. So they take her back home the next morning and she wakes up. This is Yui, currently suffering from memory loss, and oh my god, she is adorable! I mean, she calls Kirito and Asuna her mommy and daddy, since she doesn't know who her parents are or even what's going on. And real talk, they do a really good job showing the wholesome family dynamic these three have. Plus, Yui beat Anya Forger to the punch by about 10 years, being the adorable daughter who has more to her. But something just doesn't quite sit right with Yui. The way she talks, the way she's just there. And on top of that, they go back to the first floor where everyone had to have started, and not only does no one there even recognize Yui, but Yui doesn't find anything familiar there either. They also have no clue on Yui in the real world, so they can't trace her back there. And on top of her memory loss, they're not really coming up with a lot of clues. Do the Nerve Gear headsets have other negative effects besides Kayaba's thing that makes people die if their health bar reaches 0? And again, Yui just feels so different from everyone else there. Her reactions, her lack of background, the way she's just so attached to Kirito and Asuna, going as far to call them her mother and father. It leaves a tiny bit of doubt in your mind, but there's no way they do something that intricate with her, right? That's most of episode 11, and honestly, it's good setup. It's not exactly a fast-paced episode or anything, but as far as slowdown episodes go, this was well executed. It's a good time for Kirito, Asuna, and the precious little Yui to get along. And the callback to the first floor is neat. And with that, we've got ourselves a great segue into episode 12. And with that, time to talk about episode 12. The real deal. Huh? Oh, you'll find out why I'm laughing in a different video. This is, without question, the best episode of the arc in my opinion. The daycare keeper Yulier talks to Kirito and Asuna. Her husband has been trapped in a dungeon below the first village that was intended as a post-game area of sorts. It has strong enemies and a pursuer boss called the Fatal Scythe. For what I mean by pursuer boss, think like Mr. X or Nemesis from Resident Evil. You know, the big bad beefy enemy they encourage you to stealth around, and you're only really intended to fight them at max stats or at the end of the game. That's basically what the Fatal Scythe is in a nutshell. While it's not exactly invincible, no player at the current moment has the raw stats to dare confront it. But Yulier's husband is trapped in a dungeon, and while there are save rooms... this thing really is Mr. X, damn. Anyways, even though there are safe rooms, he can't find his way back. So, Kirito and Asuna, again, they put their vacation plans on hold to do the right thing and help these people, with Yui tagging along. While going through the dungeon, we have some good small talk moments, and, admittedly, a funny scene poking a bit of fun at Asuna's cooking. I actually got a laugh out of this. So they find Yulier's husband, but naturally, the Fatal Scythe creature detects them, and Kirito and Asuna are forced into combat to protect the two daycare keepers and Yui. But shockingly, Yui stays behind, despite them giving warp crystals to get out of there. And if you want proof that Kirito is not overpowered, here is an example. They don't stand a chance against this thing. Even when guarding its slash attack, the knockback is so strong that it launches them into the walls and they still lose a sizable chunk of health. If this thing can do that much damage by tossing its enemies into the environment, just think how much damage a direct slash would have had. And it really does look like a lose-lose situation for Kirito and Asuna until... Yui? What the?
Daddy, Mommy. Don't worry, I remember everything.
What? Okay, now that we've calmed down a little here, Kirito and Asuna take Yui into the save room to figure out... Well, what I want to know is, what the heck just happened here? And this is where it's all revealed. Yui isn't even human. She's an artificial intelligence program made by Akihiko Kayaba to monitor player data, most notably the mental health of players, seeing as the Nerve Gear headset comes with its risk being a full dive technology and all. However, during the game's official launch, Kayaba, like a complete douchebag, barricaded her access to core functions, and Yui was forced to watch as all these players in-game died due to Kayaba's ambition, and she couldn't lift a finger to help them. It got so bad, the errors piled up, and she chose to break free from the system and go against Kayaba's intent for her. Her amnesia, a cover-up. A way for her to slip past the system's firewall and get her into the game so she could help the people that stood no chance. The fire attack to beat this overpowered Reaper monster, she was tapping into the system's mechanics. Her immunity, all part of the game. Kirito and Asuna were just as flabbergasted as I was during this revelation. And in this moment, Yui laments, questioning if what she did was right, if her feelings are real, or if it's all just fake. Her desire to help others, and her attachment to Kirito and Asuna. Is this just an extension of Kayaba's system holding her? Is it genuine? Will Kirito and Asuna still trust her, even knowing her entire existence was just one big wad of data? But even knowing that, they still comfort Yui because they genuinely care about her. Kirito and Asuna don't care if she's just an artificial intelligence, since Yui felt human. The time they spent as a family wasn't just pretend. Even if it's in a game, the time they spent together was some of the happiest they had in all of their time during Aincrad. And that's when Yui finally breaks down, revealing what it is she really wants.
I want to stay with you forever. Daddy, Mommy. You will. We'll be together forever, Yui.
Yeah. Remember, you're our child.
Where was this earlier? This is really effective. I mean, it took them a while, but they're finally tapping into things. Kayaba has been such a passive villain, but this is a decent way to add to his deeds, besides just trapping people in the game and deaths of characters we barely got to know. It shows he viewed Yui as nothing more as a resource than to be used, and it doesn't stop there. Because Yui went against the system and destroyed what was clearly meant to be a difficult-to-fight monster, the system is going to erase her. And we know just how dismissive Kayaba is. Yui begins to vanish. But my man, Kirito, he's not gonna let things go the way Kayaba wants.
Cardinal? No! Kayaba!
You're gonna find out things don't always go the way you want them to!
And using the in-game console, he manages to pull an insane clutch and preserve Yui's data by copying it into an in-game object where the system won't recognize it. This does unfortunately mean we won't see Yui again to another arc, but honestly, I think it's better that way. She made such a lasting impression that it's a smart decision that they just sort of put her on the back seat before Aincrad could find a way to mess her up again. And the end of the episode is a heartfelt reaffirmation of Kirito and Asuna's feelings, as well as their goal to bring back their beloved digital daughter when they do finish this game, and stop the mad ambitions of Kayaba. And you know what? These episodes are really good. I mean, yeah, it took them a while, but it's proof that Aincrad does have something going for them. It's also not swept under the rug since, spoiler alert, Yui does come back and is a recurring character in future arcs. Well, alright, we're smiling again. Kirito is being awesome, Asuna isn't as much of a bossy bitch anymore, Yui isn't dead, It seems like they're focusing on the villain more. Now episode 13, another two-parter. My, Aincrad's having a lot of these plots span over multiple episodes, huh? Kirito and Asuna are back at their house. There is still this empty feeling without Yui being there, but I do buy their resolve to not only clear the game for their own sake, but for others too. So from that, we spend half an episode on the dumb, stupid fisherman side quest? What? Why would you do that? Ugh. In yet another clash of tone, we go from diving into characters' heads to... I don't even know anymore. What does fishing at this point in time accomplish? And again, for the first half of the episode, I get maybe they wanted a calm before / after the storm or whatever, but this is not the right time for that. Especially with the planned raid on the 75th floor boss being right on the horizon, which takes up the latter half of the episode. And many guilds are on board with assisting this mission, by the way, including Eagle and Klein. Commander Heathcliff is even there to confront this boss, since apparently it's a tough one. And while the dumb, stupid fishing quest wasted the first half of this episode, I won't lie, it is kinda satisfying to see a lot of these characters work together for a common goal, even if they've been off-screen for the longest time. The 75th floor boss is the Skull Reaper, and one of the more striking bosses. Although, I'm not gonna lie when I say the fight is a little weird. I mean, yes, at the very least, it's not the bigger enemy with bigger weapon type design, but for some weird reason, this fight starts at the end of episode 13 and is concluded at the start of episode 14? That's a really weird way to splice the fight. It's not like this is the final boss being the 75th floor and all, but why? Well, anyways, since I mentioned the fact that the fight ends in episode 14, that leads us into... what else? Episode 14. The Skull Reaper is defeated and everyone is exhausted. The battle, while victorious, didn't come without its casualties of generic fodder players we didn't care about anyways. Eagle and Klein are even more worried since they got 25 more floors to do of this shit, and harder as well, might I add. But that's when Kirito notices something off. Whereas everyone else is tired or low on health, Commander Heathcliff is completely unfazed. So he goes to, no. This wasn't fooling anybody. Commander Heathcliff is the avatar of Akihiko Kayaba. And okay, look. In theory, this could have been a good twist. The leader of the strongest guild in the game, Asuna's mentor, and an incredibly skilled player is actually the main villain. Sounds like a decent idea. Problem is, the way they played it drains so much life out of me. Not only because Akihiko Kayaba has been so passive for a villain, he tells everyone they're trapped in episode 1, and it isn't until the end of episode 9 that they were introduced to Heathcliff, and even then, they do a worse job at masking it since they make him act so suspicious with the big glowing window in the Gendo Ikari pose, as if the duel in episode 10 wasn't a hint enough. And on top of that, he just doesn't act like a villain. He instead compliments Kirito for finding out his identity, impressed with his skills. But because this is Kayaba and it's his game, and everyone is pissed at him for trapping everyone and putting them through this digital hell, he stuns everyone in the room. Except for Kirito. And in the words of Commander Heathcliff / Akihiko Kayaba / whatever you want to call him by, Kirito, I think you deserve a reward, so I'll let you duel me again. My immortality will be deactivated, of course. And, okay, fine, I can get behind Akihiko Kayaba using his knowledge of the game to program his health bar to never drop. I can also understand that he wants a fair fight. That, and it would be hard to write a way for Kirito to break the system and remove that immortality. What I can't get behind is how anticlimactic this final battle is. Yeah, You're wondering why we're having the final boss of a 100-floor game on floor 75? Gee, that's what I was wondering too! And look, while I did compliment their first duel, Kirito's swifter, more combo-heavy style does clash well with Heathcliff's more defense/counter-oriented playstyle. His unbreakable shield is a nice gimmick, in contrast to Kirito's dual wielding. But you know, rather than expanding upon their first duel with strategies and creative thinking, we get the most try-hard battle I've ever seen. I mean, at least it's not over in a single strike, but it's impossible for me to take any of this seriously because they cliche every single battle trope I can think of. Kirito, for some reason, can't get around the shield, even though he had ways to do so in their first duel. Kaiba/Heathcliff throws in a cheesy game over line. Asuna gets a fake out death, but no, she's not gonna die, since if they killed her, they wouldn't be able to market her as the series' main waifu. And then there's the final blow. Oh lord! This takes the cake for one of the most try-hard finishers I've ever seen. After a totally legit death scene, Kirito is depressed. He can't bring himself to fight anymore, and Kaiba impales him. Kirito's health bar reaches 0, and in this state, Kirito hallucinates his death, just like all the other deaths we've seen. But he grits his teeth, convincing himself it's not over yet, and during his 15-second despawning animation, he has enough time to land the critical hit he needs to beat Kaiba. And okay, look. Using the death/despawning animation to get the opening he needs isn't a bad idea. But it's the execution that makes it feel so lame and not as cool as they want to make it seem. And then there's Kaiba, or Heathcliff, or honestly, I don't even know what to call him. The game developer? Like, seriously, this guy has so many fucking names. But keep in mind, the lead up to this. Well, that's a surprise. I didn't know Asuna could shake off her paralysis. He's depressed? Time to sidestep his half-ass swing. Oh, stab him, he's dead. Huh? Oh wait! He's in his last second despawning animation. He's gonna try and do a final attack. I'm just gonna smile and not move my unbreakable shield to... Ah! Now you see why I say Kaiba sucks as an antagonist? And if you think it's because of the final fight and how passive he is, it's not just that. With Aincrad now beat and Kirito clutching a victory at the last second, him and Asuna have a moment to talk to each other. Yes, Asuna isn't dead. There is both a reason in this arc and the next one how she survived. To give you the short version, Kaiba, out of respect for Kirito, chose not to fry Asuna's brain until after the duel, and even if he did, the next major villain of the arc, using his knowledge of Kaiba's company, had swiped Asuna and several other players' data, so it wouldn't have triggered anyways. But that's besides the point. As Kirito and Asuna see the floating 100 floors of Aincrad falling apart, we see Kaiba, in his human form by the way, and we finally get an explanation to his deeds. And yeah, you guessed it, it's nothing to write home about. His genius, his work, he was so bored and disconnected from his everyday mundane life. He wanted to make his dream game feel real. Aincrad was based off of a dream he had where he felt truly happy, yet his real life pulled him away from that. And in his ambition to make his dream real, he ended up hurting others. And now he recognizes it? Sure, Kirito beating/humbling him may have caused him to see this was all fake anyways, but come on! It is a little late for this, on top of you barely being on screen when you're the main villain of this arc. And this motive isn't a bad idea on paper for a game designer This is fine enough. I can understand someone being overworked, but the problem is, again, he doesn't do enough as a villain to make this feel any more than just a weak justification. And then Kirito and Asuna embrace, wondering if they'll find each other in the real world. And God, it's not over yet, because then we have the fucking ending. Fuck this goddamn stupid ending. Kirito awakens in the hospital, praying to dear life. The Asuna is still alive, even though she totally is. And oh my god! Okay, no. Do you need me to say anything else on why Aincrad is the worst SAO arc? Look no further than the ending. And before then, there was bad stuff there. God damn it. It seemed like they were kind of getting somewhere between episodes 9 and 12. But right when you think it picks up, the arc is over. The final battle is rushed. Half of the two-parter is spent on fishing, and the ending cliffhanger just begs viewers to watch Fairy Dance since that arc is objectively better written. Yeah, I said it. And to top it all off, when you finally get to those credits, you realize what you watched was 14 episodes of setup. Kirito and Asuna haven't grown to their fullest potential. Yui hasn't been revived yet. Kayaba's motives, despite the series wanting you to think otherwise, hasn't been fully revealed. Several side characters haven't been done justice yet. Villains who actually do things aren't shown until later, and the ending is proof. Why would I not like every other arc more when they deliver infinitely, not only more on the actual execution of these ideas, but also just as self-contained story arcs? Aincrad isn't self-contained. And no, do not try and justify your biased, unfair favorism of this arc behind progressive, ordinal scale, or the abridged series because you hate Fairy Dance that much. You cannot tell me this is the peak of SAO without evidence. And I don't see any evidence why this arc should be at the top of the list or why this should have been the only arc of SAO when it has this shit of a setup. Well, there you have it. That is why, despite my love for SAO, I can't recommend it, since you start out with the worst part of the story. First impressions go such a long way in anime, and this is one of the weakest first impressions for, again, a series that I genuinely love. But it's so hard for me, not only to recommend the series, but even rewatch it, because I know I have to pay a 14 episode tax up front just to get to the parts that are actually decently written. And okay, not all of those 14 episodes are that bad, but they're also not that great either. Even the good parts of this arc are nothing on good parts of literally every other arc. And if you're going to vote Aincrad as the best arc, then you're gonna have to prove it. Because after this video, I don't care if I get all the mean, most personal attacking comments saying I'm being unfair to this arc, being a contrarian or some shit. But like, really guys, how can you argue against this? None of the other SAO arcs relied on movies and outside materials to still be good within their own walls. Yes, I know Phantom Bullet has the GGO spinoff, but Phantom Bullet is still totally enjoyable even without that spinoff. Same thing goes for Fairy Dance and its spinoff arcs Caliber and Mother's Rosario, which, okay, technically speaking are still canon, but whatever. And the bottom line is, Aincrad relies on progressive ordinal scale and the rest of this series. It is a terrible first arc. So to answer the question I posed at the start of this video, I think we have our conclusive answer. And that answer is, Aincrad is indeed a rigid mess. Well, the good news is this: I don't have to rant anymore. Future videos, I'll be much more positive. I don't think I even need to give a score, because honestly, what good would that do me? But anyways, Next time on the Animemories retrospective, the Fairy Dance arc. How much more divisive can we get? Have a good one!